Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Shrewsbury Zoning Board of Appeals. We have an action-packed meeting this evening with 8 hearings, so I hope you are all excited to be here as we are. First on the agenda, we need to review and sign some bills. First bill is for $763.40 to the Community Advocate for the June 30th, 2025 legal notices. Can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. $8 to WB Mason for office supplies. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Next up is to review and accept a number of meeting minutes. First up is the meeting from October 22nd, 2022. Review and accept the meeting minutes. Can I get a motion? Do we have any discussion?
No? I move to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Next up is March 31st, 2025. Louise?
So I think these do need just one more level of review. So if we want to continue this, and we can put it on the next agenda if you're okay with that.
Motion to continue?
I move to continue.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And finally, the minutes from May 28th, 2025. Can I get a motion, or unless there's any discussion?
I move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, on to the public hearings. All right, the first public hearing, excuse me for 1 second. This is to hear the appeal of Patrick Byrne, 1092 Main Street, Unit 2, Bolton, Mass., for a variance to the Shrewsbury zoning bylaws, Section 7, Table 2, to construct a new deck 32.5 feet from the rear setback where 40 feet is required upon property located at 19 Elma Circle in the Residence B1 zoning district. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 21, Plot 189000. If the applicant can please step forward and have a seat, and if you could state your name for the record, please.
Kevin McKinnon.
Kevin? If you could just talk us through your project.
Currently, there's a approximately 15-foot by 25-foot patio, like a raised patio there. And we want to put a deck that's almost the same size, a little smaller. It's actually going to bring it back 3 feet away from the property line. So instead of 32 feet away, it'll be more like 35 feet away. The backyard is in that area kind of small. It's a little confined, and it leads directly to the pool. And I believe that like having that deck there is really gonna very much enhance the backyard, the usability of it, and for them to access the pool and everything else. And we always try to use helical piers instead of concrete, so that's a little less disruption to the ground and no excavation or anything like that.
Okay. All right, well, we might have some questions for you.
Okay.
I'm going to open up to the board for discussion.
For a variance, we normally need to have something unique about the shape of the soil, the topography of the lot, or the existing structures in order to grant a variance. I think I hadn't realized from the application, so there's currently, is it a paved patio that's there that you're going to be replacing with the deck?
Yeah,
Okay, and so this will actually be further from the property line than the patio.
right.
Okay, so that's helpful for my decision making. I think from the look of the plan, where the house is, there's not really anywhere else that it would make a lot of sense to put a deck. So I
Right.
think you're kind of constrained by the existing pergola, pool, and house in terms of where you can put it. So I think it's in the spirit of the bylaw.
Very good. Ann?
I have no questions.
David?
I only have echoes of what Peter has already said, so.
Okay, wonderful. Megan?
I'm the
Echo?
same. I'm the same.
Okay.
Echo.
All right, well, I'm going to echo that. I'm going to, Louise, anything we need to know about this?
No, I think in the comment letter we just requested a little more, background on what the hardship was. But if you're comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the size of the lot
Mhm.
is what we're suggesting. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on this? Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Might I get a motion, please?
I move to approve a variance under Section 7, Table 2, to construct a new deck 32 and 5/10 feet from the rear yard setback where 40 feet is required at 19 Elma Circle, Residence B1 District.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Great,
All
thank you.
set. Okay, the next hearing, this is to hear the appeal of Kristen Lunks, 12 Winslow Street in Shrewsbury, for a variance to the Shrewsbury zoning bylaws, Section 7, Table 2, to construct a new deck 32.9 feet from the rear setback where 40 feet is required upon property located at 12 Winslow Street in the Residence B1 zoning district. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 30, Plot 061175. Could I ask the applicant to please step forward? Welcome.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
Good. How are you guys?
Great. If you could just start us out and let us know a little bit more about your project, that would be great.
So, we are seeking a variance to first remove an old unsafe deck, and then we want to seek the variance to have a setback of 32.9 feet to construct a new deck, a 16 by 20 deck. So the hardship is that we have an upward slope going to the rear property line, and also like the terrain of the backyard, it's unleveled. So to level our property, we would have to excavate, and that would be very costly for us to like put a patio in. So that's why we're seeking the variance for this deck.
Okay, thank you. Peter, want to start us off?
Sure. I see this as being very similar to the previous hearing. You're kind of constrained by where the existing home is, and it sounds like you've got some topography issues too. So I think I'm fine with it.
Okay, Ann?
I'm good with it. I think we just need you to say your names for the record.
Oh, I'm Kristen Lundquist, property owner of 12 Winslow Street. This is my mother, Gwen Aguiar.
Thanks.
Dave?
Yeah, again, same as Peter. It looks like there's some terrain issues. You mentioned upward slope, similar to the one before.
Megan?
I'm on the same page.
Okay, as am I. Louise, anything we need to know?
No, no comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard on this matter? Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Move to close the public hearing?
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Go build your deck.
Wait,
Thank you.
vote on
Thank
the-
you.
Have a great night.
That was just the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. I'm really trying to rush through this
that
tonight,
was
and I
too easy.
apologize to my audience. Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve a variance under Section 7, Table 2, to construct a new deck 32 and 9/10 feet from the rear setback where 40 feet is required at 12 Winslow Street, Residence B1 District.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Now you can go build your deck. Thank you. Okay. Next hearing is to hear the appeal of L. Brian Cheshire, 11 Lexington Road, for a variance to the Shrewsbury zoning bylaws, Section 4B, to construct a garage 3.4 feet from the side setback where 20 feet is required upon property located at 11 Lexington Road in the Residence A zoning district. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 26, Plot 110047. If you could please state your name for the record.
Brian Cheshire.
Good evening. If you could let us know what you're looking to do, Mr. Cheshire.
So my property has an existing carport. I was actually before this board right about this time a year ago seeking a variance to replace that carport with a metal mail order prefabricated garage that would just sit in the same footprint. It was actually approved. In the process of looking at the prefab garages, we kind of thought about, instead of getting one of the prefab mail orders, just build it. And hired a builder, got an architect, drew up the plans. We did discuss it with the building department, saying, our plan was to put a cement slab But if we build this, we're gonna put it on a foundation, you know, everything up to code, and just build a structure, stick build, I guess is what you would call it. Didn't see any issues initially until we applied for the building permit, and the building permit officer said that this structure was not approved in the variance, and what I want to build, even though it is smaller than the structure that was approved before, it's a couple of feet taller, and it's a totally different building because there's a foundation, and he just was not comfortable giving me a permit for the structure. So the new structure is actually gonna be 16 by 24. Rather than an 18 by 28 metal building, this will be a 16 by 24 built garage with foundation. Same setbacks, 3.4 feet. So he recommended I come back to you guys, just so we're all on the same page and there's no confusion about what I want to do and what I want to build.
Okay.
Oh, I would point out one thing, and I didn't even notice it. When I was approved last year, the actual wording in the variance said that I was replacing the existing carport with another carport. But that was not the intent, and it was not in the description where I wrote out what the reason I was looking for the permit and the variance. I used the word garage, but the plot plan originally done by the surveyor labeled it as carport, not garage. So I corrected that. I now have you have a copy of the plan. The architectural plan now states garage, 16 by 24 footprint.
Thank you for that. Okay. All right. You want to start us off, Pete?
Sure. I don't think I have any issues under the special permit standard. You're replacing an existing structure. We previously approved that with the prefabricated structure. It sounds like this is smaller. It looks like a very nice design. I have no problem with it.
Ann?
I agree with Peter.
Dave?
Yeah, all the reasons that we approved before, I think are still valid. It's a smaller structure. It's nicer.
It is. That was the other thing. It's going to be nicer. It's more with the architecture of the house. It's not going to be an eyesore. It shouldn't present any problem because it's on the side of the property. It's just a small lot, and I don't have any other place to build it.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're in a neighborhood that is of traditionally small lots, and they're all pretty tight together
Yeah.
anyways. So I see no issues.
Meg?
I do agree with everything that's been said, so I have no questions. It's a nice looking garage.
Great. I do not have questions myself. Louise, anything we're missing here? Okay. All right. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard on this matter? Okay. Can I get a motion?
Wait.
Oh, can you, could you step forward, please? You need to come to the front, right here.
It's not against your property.
Excuse me for a minute. You need to speak into that microphone, and if you could please give us your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Jefferson Lima. I speak for Giovanni. He doesn't speak much English, but he's live on 12 Concord Road. He just here to approve, and let him know he's in favor of his construction. So he just want to let you know he's.
That's very nice. 12
Is it
Concord
for you?
Road?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for coming. That's very meaningful.
No, thank you very much. I did discuss this with my neighbors, so, I know it has to go to public hearing.
Yeah, no, it's nice when people show up in favor. That's great. Is there anyone else? All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Move to close the public hearing.
In a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve a special permit under Section 4B to construct a garage 3 4/10 feet from the side yard setback where 20 feet is required at 11 Lexington Road, Residence A District.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next hearing, this is to hear the appeal of Kevin Callahan, 50 Hosmer Street, West Boylston, for a variance to the Shrewsbury zoning bylaws, Section 7, Table 2, to construct a deck 19.3 feet from the side setback where 50 feet is required upon property located at 1 Abbey Lane in the Residence B2 and Rural B District. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 52, Plot 121000. Welcome. If you could please state your name for the record.
I am Carrie Callahan. I own Deck Dynasty. I am here on behalf of our client, Shirley Marconi. She lives at 1 Abbey Lane. She is an elderly lady. She purchased this home. It's part of a 55 and older community. She hopes to essentially age in place there. This is her forever home. When purchasing the home, she had thought that she could add a deck to the back. Currently, it only has a 4x4 platform with roughly 5 steps. Her hope and dream is to have a bigger deck there that she can step right outside and safely enjoy the outside as she ages. Stairs are already a little, scary for her as she's aging, and so she really would like a safe place to be able to just step outside and enjoy the outside. The deck is roughly 19 feet, our proposed deck, from the property line. The home itself is only 31 feet, so I don't know if that was already accepted before when they were planning.
We'll get to that.
Oh, okay. I know this is a really tough one, so.
Yep. Okay. Could you just describe what the existing structure that is there now?
Currently, it's just a 4x4 little platform off her slider, so it's not even the same width as her slider, just that like where it opens with like 5 steps coming down to the ground.
Okay. Okay, thank you for all that info. I'm going to open it up to the board. Peter?
I'd be interested to hear what the rest of the board thinks. It occurs to me that the 50 feet is because we're in rural B.
The whole entire site for the Lake Street Estate, there's a direct zone line between Res B2 and rural. And so in the legal notice, we use the more restrictive one, even though the 1 Abbey Lane does reside completely in Residence B2,
Okay.
I think it says.
Yeah, it just occurs to me that it's the character of the development that's there is not like a typical rural B where everything's really spread out. So the 50 feet doesn't really make an awful lot of sense in this.
No, and I thought it was 25 at that point, but I also couldn't tell what the zoning was.
Yeah.
Because it's a kind of interesting property.
So I think this is, to me, an example of where the existing structures enforcing the rules strictly doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense based on the existence of the structures that are there. So I'd be inclined to grant it, but I'm curious what other folks think.
So I have a different perspective. You've articulated that your client may have some mobility issues, and in my opinion, that would probably involve a substantial hardship if she weren't able to have the deck built. So for that reason, I probably would be in favor of it.
Thank you.
David?
So in looking at this, I was thinking about the entire development that your client resides in. And I was like, okay, so if you get this deck, then what if every single other unit in this development also wants to build the exact same deck? And if that were to happen, I don't see any real degradation of the character of the neighborhood. It is a little dense, but I don't think it would be causing any problems by way of noise or odor or traffic generated.
I mean, she's a single elderly lady, so I can't imagine
Exactly.
her causing much ruckus back there, And there's a fence separating, a privacy fence separating the whole, essentially, property from the neighboring yards behind her. So there is a privacy fence, so the neighbors can't really see her anyways.
Yep, so for all those reasons, I see no issues with it.
Megan?
So the deck, I'm assuming it's gonna just be at the same level as the existing platform, and there still will be stairs, but it'll
There
just be a
will.
bigger,
Yeah, so now
Area
she'll
for her
have
to
more
enjoy.
space to just step outside
right, have a
and,
table and chairs. And
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm in alignment with what everybody else has said in that case. I think I'm all set.
So I would love to see this, for the owner and for her mobility issues. I guess what I'm hung up on is, can either of you guys give us a little backstory on the development in general? Are there other properties with decks? Talk to me about that.
There are other properties with decks. Within the planning board decision to any homeowner there that wishes to add a deck, would need to go back to planning board for a modification, to, you know, let them know that this is a request that they're making. So,
I'm curious whether the developer communicated to the homeowners when they were buying the units that they would have to go through this process.
I'm not sure.
Okay. We don't know? Yeah, okay. All right, so, all right, let's open this up to public hearing. If I could ask whoever's here that would like to speak on her behalf, step up to the microphone, and if you could please state your name and address for the record.
I am Diane Lindberg, 7 Peyton Place. Disclosure, I am on the HOA board presently. I was not on the board, we just had a change of people. This development does have many, many decks that, as people were buying the house, they were asked if they wanted to have a deck. Some said yes, others didn't. At this time, a request is being made to have a deck put on the back of the house as a matter of someone who can enjoy the outside without having to use all of the stairs. The patio is remaining, I understand, and yes, I think I just heard that the stairs are also going to be remaining. These decks that most of us have are so small, you can't even put a chair on them to sit on them. Hence, the applicant is looking for a bit larger deck so that she can enjoy the outside. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Okay. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Move to close the public hearing?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, please.
I move to approve a variance under Section 7, Table 2, to construct a deck 19 3/10 feet from the side yard setback where 50 feet is required at 1 Abbey Lane, Residence B2 District.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, you're all set.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Next hearing. This is to hear the appeal of Joshua Lee Smith, 311 Main Street, Worcester, for a variance to the Shrewsbury zoning bylaws, Section 7D, to allow for less parking that is required upon the property located at 235-237 Boston Turnpike in the Commercial Business Zoning District. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 32, Plot 115000. Welcome, if you could please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Joshua Lee Smith. I'm an attorney with law firm of Bowditch and Dewey. One correction I have is that the address, we're no longer at 311 Main Street. We are actually at 446 Main Street. We just moved. With me to my left is Colby O'Brien. He is with the applicant, Making Opportunity Count, Inc. And I'll refer to them as mock as we present. We do have a slide deck, which I am logged into the meeting, and now I'm trying to share. So if you could bear with me one moment. While I'm fumbling around here trying to pull this up, Louise, do you have just the survey plan that you could share?
Sure.
That may be sufficient, and I promise to be brief. This is not a deck project. This is something probably less glamorous insofar as development is concerned. My client is leasing the property at 235 Boston Turnpike. Mock is a nonprofit organization, and there's the survey. Thank you. As you can see, the lot is oddly shaped. It's sort of long and skinny. It's got a pinch point as you go from Turnpike Road to Boston Turnpike to the rear portion of the site. I'm sure members are familiar with this property. This is the former Worcester City Motel. It is no longer a motel. The property owner acquired the title to the property a little while back and performed various renovations with respect to the building. The building renovations consisted mainly of cosmetic aesthetic improvements. They repainted the exterior. There was virtually no site civil work at all with respect to this property. No changes with respect to parking, no changes with respect to the access. And most of the bulk of the work that occurred was with respect to what exists today now, which are 63 units. So they converted those motel rooms into 63 units in order to serve MOC's purpose at this site, which is to house families in need. So those families that are either homeless or formerly homeless currently occupy these various units, 63 in total. And so that interior fit-up work occurred with respect to the landlord working with MOC, and there were some areas within the building as well that were converted to be utilized now as office, and some common areas, areas for cooking, areas for play for the residents at this site. And I will say that the specific variance that we're seeking is only with respect to parking. So in terms of the numbers, based on, and we've had a number of discussions with Patty Sheehan, with Chris McGoldrick and his team, as well as the town manager, the assistant town manager with respect to this site. So the part of the challenge with this site was that there was no actual use category that squarely fit within what MOC's purpose and intent and use for this site is today. So what the actual use is if you, based on the building code, is a congregate living facility. However, this use is a Dover Amendment protected use. It is an educational use under MGL 40A Section 3, as determined by the town, including Patty Sheehan as well as Chris McGoldrick. So what we're left with is reasonableness with respect to the parking. In terms of the parking, as I'm sure the members know, the zoning bylaw has various uses that have different formulas with respect to minimum parking. So based on what Patty Sheehan had determined with respect to this particular use, this would fall under a dwelling type use, which if you do the math, based on 63 units, equates to 102 minimum parking spaces required. That would be 63 units, so there's a formula, I think it's 2 parking spaces per unit, plus the whatever number of employees are contemplated. So 102 units is required, technically. However, at the site, there are currently 51 parking spaces that serve this building. And as I said at the outset, those parking spaces have not changed. They've been in existence for years, going back to when this motel had been in operation. So 51 parking spaces serve the building. As we pointed out in our application, we are seeking relief with respect to 68 parking spaces. So when you do that quick math, that doesn't exactly work. The reason for that is because some of the spaces, as you might be able to see from the screen there, some of the spaces are they are in existence by virtue of an easement going back to the 1940, I think it was. And so my client and the current property owner have the right to be able to utilize those spaces on the left side there, which sort of straddle the property line. And for anyone who goes to the site, you know, on the left, which I think is west, is the Walgreens. Mm-hmm. And so it clearly, those spaces are completely solely occupied by the property owner at 235 Boston Turnpike. So in any event, to make a long story short, those spaces we did not count towards the minimum, towards applying to the minimum, which is why we are seeking the 68 in relief with respect to the total number of spaces. So that leaves, in other words, 34 spaces that we are counting as officially part of those parking spaces, even though in reality, 51 parking spaces serve the building. In terms of hardships, in terms of uniqueness, in terms of lot shape, clearly it's a long, narrow lot. You can never get 102 spaces on this property. It's about a 2-acre sized lot, so it's relatively large. However, it is oddly shaped. You can get a few more spaces in the rear. However, you can never get 102. And again, this going back to the Dover Amendment, technically, our position is that the real requirement really is that the parking be reasonable. However, as a belt and suspenders, Patty Sheehan and Chris McGoldrick had requested that we seek the variance. So, in an abundance of caution, we applied for the variance, seeking the 68 spaces. The reality with respect to the occupants, given that these are families, and I want to underscore these are families, not individuals who are residing in these 63 units. These families, clearly, they don't all have cars. Many of them do not have cars at all. However, there's public transportation along this commercial corridor. There's Ubers, there's other ways, other means that these families can get from point A to point B without needing a car or utilizing a parking space. This is also this is a Lakeway overlay district, so you've got a number of businesses, essential services, I'll say, or amenities. So a grocery store, they can literally walk over to Whole Foods if they want to. So there are places within walking distance. There are other means of transportation. They just simply don't need 102 parking spaces. In our application, we had indicated, based on my client's history, experience, they need about 33 parking spaces. But if you go there, I went there today, I've been there a number of times, it is underutilized parking in general. So that's the ask. I'm sorry I couldn't get my slide deck to work. Basically, I just had some images of what existed there previously and what exists there today. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter, you want to start us off?
Sure. I have a clarifying question, then kind of a substantive question. The parking spaces that are located in the easement that you said accrue to the owner of the property, is it that Mock wouldn't be able to use those? In other words, you said there's 50-something spaces, but you're only counting 30. Are the 50 available or are the 30 available?
All 51 are available
Okay.
for Mock to use under the lease and otherwise.
And how many units again are there?
63,
So you're almost at one parking space per unit, but not quite.
correct.
Okay. Is it your position that it would be unreasonable to construct any additional parking spaces?
It would be, yes, it would be unreasonable and frankly just unnecessary.
Okay.
It would be a waste.
And the area towards the rear of the lot that appears to be more or less undeveloped, would it be impossible to build any parking spaces in that area?
I can answer that. It would be possible. However, families are using it. Like I was there this evening. They're using it to play in, and they're using the parking spot to play. At back area is a little more private, and we moved from the street, so it does give a little bit more of a privacy and safety for families when on site.
It looks like a large area, though. Would there be potentially enough space to have some spaces and still retain area for recreation, all that sort of thing?
You probably wouldn't want cars driving back there while kids are playing, so it does give. I mean, it's definitely we could. It's definitely possible to line that, but it does take away from recreation from the kids.
Okay, because I'm just thinking in terms of reasonability. I hear what you're saying, that there's a lot of area that's walkable in this area and there's a lot of amenities, but there may be more people that have cars than there are spaces, in which case it would be something you might expect that people might end up parking their cars in the lots of these other landowners or something like that, and it could just create an issue. So if it were possible and not unreasonable to build a few more spaces, that would be my preference, but I'm interested in what other folks think.
Can I add a point, Peter?
Sure.
We have about 50 families there right now, or nearing capacity, because some families share 2 rooms. We have about 30 vehicles that families actually have in possession of. So we're short in terms of on the 50 number, and we're about nearing capacity at the site.
Okay. And would you think it would? Do you think it would always be the case necessarily that? Do you think you would never ever have a situation where everybody has a car, at least one car?
In our experience with shelters, we do have a lot of families that we provide transportation for, and so that pairs on average for what we see across all of our sites.
Okay. So would you think is the maximum number of spaces that you think you would need based on your experience? Is it 30 or is it 40? it's less than 50, but where is it really, do you think, the maximum that you would reasonably need based on your experience?
If every, about 75% of families come in with a vehicle, we'd probably be, nearing where we'd be at. And
Okay.
So,
So it might just be that around 30-something is what you would need for 50 units based on your experience?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I just say through the chair, this is through experience not only with respect to other sites, but this particular site as well. And this is a unique situation. The folks that have been residing here were residing here under an emergency order,
Right.
and that has shifted now. And so now, based on that experience, they're already occupying. It's already been tested with respect to this particular site.
Not
And it's been
hypothetical, in other words.
underutilized. It's not hypothetical at
Yeah,
all.
okay. All right, that's helpful. Thank you.
So thank you for your presentation. I have a few questions. First of all, the parking spaces on the Walgreens side, are those striped?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And I'm familiar with a congregate living facility. I'm not so familiar with a congregate living facility that has an educational component. So could you talk, and I'm interested in that in regards to how much more parking one would need if there are instructors coming on site. So could you talk a little bit about what the educational component is and whether those folks who are coming on site would bring their cars?
Yeah, so in our application, we talk about some very specific programs that we offer at the shelter in terms of financial literacy. We do work with families on some really intensive case management, so that either means we're bringing in providers or sending families out using other transportation methods of a vehicle. And then we're providing them everything with benefit solutions, so helping them with SNAP, helping them with Mass Health, helping them with opening a bank account. So all these really things we take for granted in our educational pieces. We partner with the schools. The schools help us with English learners ESL courses, and so they actually come and pick families up and bring them. And it doesn't happen on site. We have a play space through Horizons for homeless children, and they do trauma-informed play, and that also helps the early intervention. And so we have probably 24 different services that the agency has, and that we bring on site to families through, as we are a CAP agency. And so we do a little bit of everything, and that's kind of what families need. They need wraparound supports, and it could be a family that already has a job and they became homeless and now they're in our shelter, or a family that doesn't have anything and they're really just trying to get a license, a car, a job, enroll in classes. We're kind of doing everything through case management.
So apart from the occupants, about how many extra cars would be coming on site every day due to the educational component?
I would say no more than 2 or 3.
Okay. And how many employees otherwise are there who are bringing their cars on site every day?
On a shift that has the most staff, which is during the day, we'll have 2 case managers, a manager, and 2 support staff, so 5 to 6 if one of the directors show up.
Okay, so about 6 plus 3-ish?
Yeah,
in staffing, apart from the occupants. Are there any other cars that would be on site regularly?
Not regularly, unless it's a delivery or someone's picking up a family or dropping a family off, and so that would be sometimes an occasional visitor, but no, not regularly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
David?
A lot of good stuff has already been covered. One, I know you're already in operation, but I would like to engage in a hypothetical of if you did have all units filled, you're at capacity, and you did have every unit having a vehicle, and you were, let's say we approved, and you're in that situation where you have more units with vehicles than you have spots for, what would you say to those individuals? Or what would you do? What would your plan be as a operation? Where would they park? Where would they go?
That's a good question. They'd probably park in that rear area, or we would set aside some kind of tandem parking in the parking lot because some of those spots go this way. They're not pull in. You get tandem park them. And so we'd have to be a little creative with that. We have a site with, they had 102 units, and the parking lot had far less, fewer spots. And so we didn't run into that, but it was close to that. But we did, get a little creative with helping people park and understand. I understand that could be a potential possibility.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Maybe more later.
Megan?
You mentioned that this is in addition to the staffing, you mentioned that you sometimes transport people to places they need to go. Do you have dedicated cars or vans for that? And do they stay on site?
We do have transportation. We have a van. We have 2 vans that our shelter program has, and so the van is not on site. It actually belongs to another site, but shared with Shrewsbury.
Okay.
And so the other transportation is, they're using actual public transportation or Uber, Lyft.
Got it.
Taxis.
Got it, okay. I don't think I have anything else besides that.
Yeah, I think I want to hear a little bit more. I'm going to ask Louise and Chris to.
Sure. So I think in regards to the parking, a lot of good conversation has been happening, and if the board, would like to have a 1 or 2 year, expiration, to have them come back to review parking, to see if they, are at max capacity. Do they need, a revised application, if they're full, to expand parking in the back, could be
Yep.
a potential condition.
Okay. Like that. Any other backstory that we need to be aware of before we? Okay.
I think so.
All right. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think you know your operation.
Public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard on this matter? Okay. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Move to close the public hearing?
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Are we prepared with this decision? I do like the idea of conditions.
Yeah.
In terms of timing. I think my biggest concern is simply that all the, what we think is going to happen is actually not what happens. And then we have a burden on some of the abutters with parking. And I do really like the idea of having that flexible space in the back if we need it. So I would be inclined to grant the variance with a condition of time. And I would say a year. Rather nip it in the bud in a year than not. So that would be my preference.
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. That's what I'm thinking. Would we want to do a condition relating to the space in the rear or tandem? Can we do that, or how would we formulate that?
There's a couple ways that you could do it. I think probably the most efficient would be to expire the permit within a year. That would require the applicant simply to come back to renew that. At that time, you have that renewal of that approval in order to compel any parking to be constructed if it's an issue. If it's no longer an issue, then you can either renew that condition and do it annually, as we've done for some businesses, or if it's no longer needed, no longer a concern, you can just issue a decision without that condition.
Okay. I mean, I'm comfortable with just doing the time horizon if everybody else is.
I think that seems fair.
All right.
Okay, can I get a motion, please?
Sure. I move to approve a variance under section 7D to allow for less parking than is required, on the condition that the variance expire 1 year from issuance, at 235 to 237 Boston Turnpike Commercial Business District.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Next up, this is to hear the appeal of Brandon Barry, 5 Bristol Drive in Duxbury, for 2 variances to the Shrewsbury zoning bylaw, section 7, table 2, to construct a single-family home 18.7 feet from the side setback where 30 feet is required, and 40.5 feet from the front setback where 50 feet is required, upon property located at 457 Walnut Street in the Rural A zoning district. Subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 44, plot 007004. Welcome. If you could state your name for the record, please.
For the record, my name is Brandon Barry with Barry Design Consultants. I'm representing a developer, Elm Street Development, who has interest in the subject property. As you mentioned, this is for 457 Walnut Street. We're here seeking 2 variances for a front and side yard setback. I have a exhibit here just showing an aerial of the site to kind of help locate ourselves. The property that we're looking at, 457 Walnut Street, is on the northeasterly side of Walnut Street. It's just under 47,000 square feet in total area, and is undeveloped right now. There's a few mature trees and then a vegetated and wooded area to the rear of the site. I will point out, as you can see on the exhibit, there's a green line crossing through the site. It's a delineated wetland area. Starts at the southerly portion of the front lot line to Walnut Street, and then goes across the site, bisecting the northern property line just at about the midpoint. What we are looking to propose, if we could go to the next page in the exhibits here, is a 2,100 square foot single-family house located in the northwestern corner of the lot, as close to the buildable area that we can get it. As mentioned, with regards or respecting the wetland buffers, we are only able to provide 40.5 feet from a front yard setback, where 50 feet is required, so we're requesting 9.5 feet of relief from that dimension. And on the side yard setback, the northern property line, we're providing an 18.7 foot setback where 30 feet is required. So 11.3 feet of relief is requested there. The lot has a somewhat unique shape where it's triangular. It comes pointed to the back, gets much narrower as we progress into it. It's also curved at the front, so the front yard setback is pushing into the site a little bit. The biggest hardship that we have on our site is that wetland that crosses through the site. It really cuts off access to most of the land area on the site. And when we take into consideration the front and side setbacks, and then also the 30-foot no building setback to the wetlands, there's only about 2,400 square feet of usable area in this kind of awkwardly shaped triangle section up front. Trying to propose a structure that would fit within there leads to some unique design challenges that we also then believe would lead to some construction challenges. And working close to a wetland area, those make the project somewhat unviable for the proponent here. We will note, looking at some of the surrounding uses, it does look like there are some houses that are at, especially the one just adjacent to us, is at a very similar setback. So we're not pushing it any further than what an adjacent lot to us looks like. And the separation that we are providing between our structure and the one to the north, just over 80 feet or so, is consistent with some of the other houses on our side of the street that are plus or minus 60 to 70 feet away from each other. So we don't feel that we're making a substantial change to the neighborhood, the streetscape, and aren't proposing really any detriment to the surrounding areas. I will just point out, we had requested 3 waivers as part of, from the design standards outlined in the zoning bylaw regulations. One was from showing the property directly adjacent from our site. There is a structure on the lot across from Walnut Street from us, but it's about 125 feet set back from the road. So we weren't able to show it on this plan, but we don't think showing that prohibits the board from completing a review. And then the other 2 were for providing a utility plan and drainage calculations. Getting the setback requirements is very critical for this project, so we have not completed designs for those yet. This will require an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission, so we will do a full drainage study and make sure that that's compliant with all regulations. It will also require a stormwater management approval through the engineering department. So that will be fully designed and vetted out. We just have not done so at this time, and same thing with our utility connections. That's our proposal. We welcome any questions or comments from the board.
Thank you. Pete?
Excellent presentation. I think this pretty clearly meets the requirements for a variance in terms of the topography of the soil. You're clearly hemmed in by the wetland. It's also a very unusually shaped lot. That doesn't seem to factor in based on where the wetland is, but it's there as well, and it doesn't seem to be inconsistent with the surrounding uses, so I'm fine with both variances.
Okay. Ann?
So how much thought or what kind of thought was given into trying to make the house fit within the existing setbacks?
We looked at a couple different layouts and looking at that buildable area that we had. Ultimately, there's a couple factors, both getting something that's more of a regular shape so it's a little bit more marketable and presentable, but also it's a product that the developer is familiar with building, and working that close to the wetlands, we want something that their construction crews are used to building. It's pretty regular as far as construction goes, and we're not leading ourselves to any likelihood or chances of there being construction issues that alter the wetlands. So that was ultimately where they decided that a product that they're comfortable with, that's a fairly regularly shaped house, made the most sense for what they're looking to do.
Okay, thank you.
David?
No comments.
Megan?
No comments.
All right. I mean, I would agree with the wetlands issue. I mean, that is a pie-shaped lot.
Yeah.
That is literally a pie-shaped lot. So I do think that the wetlands are the hardship that we're seeking, but I will be curious to hear what the public meeting, this is a public meeting, and if there's someone that wishes to be heard, please step forward into the microphone. If you could, please state your name and your address for the record.
Hello everyone, this is Rakesh Jha, owner of the property adjacent to 457 Walnut Street.
What number Walnut are you?
455.
455.
And that's exactly the setback, the side setback. So my real concern is with the stormwater management, what we're doing for that, because right from the side setback, I have a graveled driveway that goes down the slope to the basement and the garage. So just want to understand, like, what do we have plans for stormwater management?
Yeah, and via the chair, we don't have a fully functional stormwater management plan at this point in time. Just speaking to what we are going to plan is to meet the stormwater standards, which would be that we aren't going to send any more runoff outside of our lot than is happening today. Any impervious areas that we're going to be creating will be providing on-site infiltration to manage those. And then ultimately, I would assume most of our lot is draining back towards the wetland area, and a lot of that would happen with any impervious areas going through the necessary treatments to do so. If our lot is currently draining onto the abutting lot, this construction gives us the opportunity to correct some of the grading along that side to kind of maintain more of our stormwater, within our site and not have it sheet off. But anything new that we're creating due to the construction of the house and driveway, we would be treating and handling on site.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard? Okay. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Move to close the public hearing?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right. Would we like to start?
So I'll propose, I move to approve two variances under Section 7, Table 2, to construct a single-family home 18 and 7/10 feet from the side yard setback where 30 feet is required, and 40 and 5/10 feet from the front setback where 50 feet is required at 457 Walnut Street in the Rural A District.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Two of them. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, the next hearing, this is to hear the appeal of Tom Corbett of Go Venture Capital Group LLC, 1 Mercantile Street, Suite 630, Worcester, Mass., for a variance to the Shrewsbury zoning bylaws, Section 7N3B 11B, to exceed the maximum building height of 45 feet or 3 stories and allow 63 feet within the Route 20 overlay upon property located at 525 Hartford Turnpike in the Limited Industrial and Route 20 Overlay Zoning District. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 48, Plot 012000. Welcome, if you could please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Tom Corbett with Go Venture Capital Group, and next to me here is Scott Turner with Fuss & O'Neill.
Welcome.
So we're here tonight asking for a variance in both stories and height for our proposed development at 525 Hartford Turnpike. The variance request for the height and the stories come from hardships based around topography and wetlands. So on site, from the frontage of 20 out to the rear of the lot in the northeast portion at the highest elevation is about a 54-foot grade change. And then in the proposal and the design behind the buildings is really where the height becomes an issue with calculating the height of the building, with being offset 10 feet from the building itself. And we'll look at that a little further as we get along here. And as far as wetlands, there's a pond and wetland system that bifurcates the property from north to south. And there's extensive bordering vegetated wetland to the northeast. at that higher grade. So this slide here shows what our proposal would be as a 5-story, 2-building layout for the residential up top. So the area off to the right-hand side where it's open and green is your higher elevation. That's a 570 grade existing. Down at the building, building height for the floor is 551. So we've got a 19-foot grade change there overall from where the buildings are proposed to the higher elevation out back. This is just a rendition of a plan that would conform to zoning as heights are allowed. So these are 3-story buildings. This shows a building up at the top, on the top right here, that would have a base floor of 570. And these ones down here would be roughly 551 in this general area, maybe a little bit higher over this direction. So here we've got some heights of the building. So this is the 5-story here. Our overall height from average grade at a -510 is about 63 feet. And if you notice up here, the total building height is 57.2. So really the grade behind the building is really what's driving the need here. And that's to keep the parking away from the wetlands and keep the building as a retaining wall protecting the wetlands. So with the 3-story, we've got that same average grade and a total height to the mean as we're measuring it from the building code. We've got a 45-foot height to the mean, but your actual overall height to the ridge of this building is 49.4. So we've got a 49.4 3-story, or we've got a 57.2 5-story building. So 8 foot in difference of height elevation in the buildings themselves onto a 19-foot grade change out back brings you down to about 11 foot actually shorter in the proposed versus what is allowed now. This kind of gives us a little bit of a perspective view. Liberty Church is just to the west of us, so this shows our 2-building layout. Does show a little clubhouse here. I don't know why I started clicking here. So we've got this building here is where the wetlands are out back, and again up to this wooded area is the area that's the higher elevation, which if we had a 3-story would be higher than the 5-story down below. This would show, kind of gives you a little perspective there as far as how the difference in height. And I've just colored up the plans in which you all have received in your inbox. So this just kind of shows the darker green is the proposed grading of the site, and the lighter green is pretty much untouched. So the intent here is to really keep the development to the south of the wetland system that's up on top of the property, to better protect that, as well as if we were to do the 4-building, we would effectively have 2 crossings of the wetlands. So with the first one, there is an existing roadway access drive that's there now, that accesses the back of the site to a septic system that was installed years back. So there would be upgrades to that wetland crossing already, pretty significant ones, as far as getting that built up for the proper width. So with the 4-building, it would push us to do a second stream crossing and more disturbance to the wetlands. And then also we'd be clear cutting a lot of trees up top for the construction of the building, which would effectively be detrimental to the neighborhood up above. So the intent with the 2-building design is to really maintain that buffer to the residents up on Rockwell, Ashton, and all of those up there. So keeping this portion over to the northeast as, through the planning board process, is what we would like to do is an open space, which would be a restricted situation. So that would just be essentially walking trails in nature for the development as a whole. Let's skip back down. So effectively, our proposal would be to about 10 acres of restricted open space for the future, and cutting off any further development towards Rockwell Drive to the north, as well as Ashton. And this gives you a pretty good perspective of what would be disturbed and left alone. And with I have some deed language too, but it's more planning agenda than anything. With that, I'd open you up to questions.
Great. Peter?
Sure. So I think the wet areas and the terrain, I think, gets you past the hurdle of the criteria for variance in general. And I think in terms of the intent of the bylaw, I think the purpose of the height restriction is primarily to reduce the sort of visual impact of large structures in areas where there aren't a lot of tall structures. And I think the fact that if you went with the 3 building or the more buildings plan, we'll call it, I don't know what the right term is for it, you'd have to construct an additional building that's up on a hill, which would be per se more visible to everybody than the smaller number of buildings down at a lower grade and sort of tucked to the side. And in terms of the intensity of the development, it looks like the intensity is lessened by having fewer taller structures as opposed to having more shorter ones. So I think it's in keeping with the spirit of the bylaw. A question that I have on the 5-story design, which you had up on the screen, that top floor, is that stepped back at all? Is it a mansard roof?
In this here?
Yeah, is it dormered, or is that just a different cladding, essentially?
It's just a different cladding on this
Okay.
one. It might be stepped back just a tiny bit,
Okay.
but again, further design elements to be seen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, as we
Okay.
kind of tidy that up per the bylaw itself.
Okay, so that's my initial reaction. I'm interested to hear what the rest of the board members think.
So I'm interested in knowing what the visual impact would be of a 5-story building. And so I haven't seen the drawings that you're showing before. Is that what is proposed, actually? Is that just a prototype, or what?
This drawing here?
Yeah.
This would be very similar. We would probably narrow down exactly what we have once we have a final building footprint through the variance, or and go from there through the planning process. This is going to be in front of planning board for a horizontal mixed use through the Route 20 overlay, as well as in front of conservation for a notice of intent, and most likely MEPA as well.
And it looks like perhaps there are balconies or something.
We are showing balconies here, yes.
Okay, is that part of the plan?
Yes, it would be moving forward, yeah.
All right, nothing more at this time?
The, for the two building version versus the 4 building version, the 2 buildings that are the same roughly location on both of those plans, are they the same like width? Because I think I saw that the 2 building version was a 60-foot wide building, the one that had the dog leg in it, or do they both have dog legs?
On the, yeah, so it would actually be 66.
It would be 66.
Is the typical width.
And if you did if you did not get the variance and you had to do more buildings, that.
We'd maintain that width. That's based upon the unit and hallway.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just pondering. Peter hit a lot of the notes that I was looking at, which is, it's kind of like stuck between the spirit of the bylaw and the wetlands management part of all of this as well. So it's either you disturb more land or you build up, is kind of like the 2 sides of this coin. I'm as yet unsure where I land.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that too?
Yes.
The actual difference between the peak of the roof on the fewer stories building and the 5-story building is actually less than 10 feet, is that right?
8 feet.
Yeah, it's 8 feet.
8 feet.
Right.
So negligible ultimately, at least as to
Feet
the
and
peak.
like from your, right outside the building.
Right.
10 feet out, as you would measure it, from average grade.
Right, okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and just to clarify too, the disturbance with the 2 building versus the 4 building is 117,000 less overall disturbance, square footage. It's 24,000 square feet less impervious area, and it's 68,000 less square feet within a 100-foot buffer zone.
Yeah.
Out of the 151 thousand square feet total for that five building,
For the,
that 5-story, sorry.
for the 5-story, it's a flat roof design?
That's correct, with the parapet.
Yep, and the parapet's included in
That's correct.
your elevations? Okay, so any mechanicals, HVAC, et cetera, will be behind the parapet?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, Megan?
So I do tend to agree with reducing the footprint because of the wetlands. My concern with asking for this height increase is that you are already 40 feet above street level where you're asking for the height increase. So I would be curious to see, I didn't see a site section or what that visual impact would be from the road. So I guess that's what I would be curious
Right.
to see, just because there is, that front building is at, what, 510?
It's 516 at the middle of the driveway, middle of the area in front of the restaurant.
Yeah, and then you're 551 for that front building, and then 559 for the building behind it, I think. So, actually,
Yep, you're right.
so
That's correct.
I'd be curious. That's my only hesitation, is just what that visual impact's gonna be from Route 20. I know we are building, there's precedent for taller buildings being built right now across the street, but that's my only hangup, is really wanting to kind of see that from,
Right.
that visual from the street.
Yeah, and I have the same hang-up, honestly. I mean, I think the idea of less clear cutting and less disturbances, all of that makes complete sense. But I think just without having a visual, it's really hard for me to kind of wrap my mind around what we're approving. So that's my struggle. Perhaps, can you help us with that, our struggles?
Yeah, so hopefully. Just to kind of put a finer point on some of the topics that were discussed, if I can. So, as it was noted, the planning board approval will also be required as part of this process, as well as the state permits that were noted. So, this is one part of kind of a larger puzzle, if you will, for the applicant to navigate prior to construction. This is really going to define the potential layout of the property. In addition to the height and visual character, the applicant, at the request of the town, held the community forum on June 23rd, where we talked about a lot of these items. So I see a couple of residents in the room. I want to thank them for coming out to that as well, and coming out this evening. But we talked about a lot of that, the preservation of the open space and the connection to the rear of the property. It was discussed as a potential balloon test, but I think a site section would be a more appropriate way to determine that visual character from various viewpoints. And I think that would be appropriate if the applicant's willing to provide that.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay. All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard? Please, if you could step forward, right over here. If you could, please state your name and your address for the record.
Yeah, Steve Danielson, 75 Stony Hill Road. So yeah, we were part of the public forum last Monday, and I guess I agree totally. Like it'd be good to have a visual of this thing. I know the church, one of the project managers here, And I drove up by the church, and this 5 stories is supposed to be right next to the church. I don't know how high, do you know how high the steeple is, or for the church?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I imagine, I would think that it's really pretty hilly there, and it might be looking down on the church. It just aesthetically wouldn't maybe look very pleasing. I did bring up possibly, did it need to be 5? Could have been 4 stories. And I noticed their 3-story drawing had a peak to it, so I know they don't have to have a peak, so you could design 3-story flat, so that difference that you're kind of calculating between a 3-story with a peak and a 5-story is is maybe not as much as if you had a flat roof. But I don't know, is there a reason you can't do 4 stories? I know we cut back on some of the
So through the chair,
apartments.
can you answer why you picked 3 versus?
So the Route 20 overlay allows for up to 250 units, so that's what we're showing here. That's the desired development. It's not that we can't do 4, it's just that we desire to do 5 and not do 4 buildings with 3 stories. Even if we were to cut down to 4 to maintain that unit count, we would still be crossing that wetland. That second wetland stream.
Yeah, it's not clear to me, but, okay, yeah, but I think the next time, or when they come, I think a visual will be really good, because, and especially putting the church right beside a 5-story building, because I think they'd almost share a parking lot between the church, and there's a parking lot, and I think there would be almost a parking lot and the 5-story building right beside it. And, yeah, and like you say, it's already starting at 40 feet, and then you're going another 60 with a 5-story building. And it is set back from the road, but visually, I can't imagine, it would kind of overshadow, I think, that church beside it. We did also mention some of the restrictions, I think you mentioned it too, is that you would probably, if you just did the 5-story 2 buildings, you'd put a restriction so they can't build another 5-story up on the hillside at a later date. So I don't know if that's here in the ZBA. And then we did talk about, there's an access road in the back part of the lot to more property behind there. And if we could put a restriction, and I think we kind of talked about it in our meeting last Monday, is to, put a restriction so they can't put an access road to further development behind that and build another couple hundred apartments up by Rockwell and that other
So
property.
you're referring to, on GIS 29R.
Don't know the
that
GIS,
abuts
but there is a
Rockwell.
couple of
That's
property.
correct. So there's, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. 0 Cherry Street is to
Yes.
the northwest.
Yep.
That comes down as a triangle into kind of our area. And off to the northeast is that R lot. Yep.
That's not under your ownership
Not at all.
currently.
No, and that's why when we were discussing this in the community forum is really kind of why we were discussing all this open space and maintaining that northern portion of the lot as open space, unbuildable, deed restricted conservation, not allowing an access road to ever go through to that R lot, and up to Rockwell. And kind of the same flip of the coin for the Cherry Street property. Even though our driveway, our parking lot ends up here, we don't have any control over 0 Cherry Street and don't have any desire to have control over Cherry Street at the moment. With the proposal that goes through to the planning board, we have been working with the church to acquire a couple acres from them to meet the zoning regs of 25 acres.
Okay, it's good to know. Okay.
Yeah, on this drawing, actually, can you kind of point out where the church is? I don't know if you have a mouse,
Sure.
you can kind of circle it.
Yeah, it's about right here.
Oh, you can't, it doesn't show on the screen.
Doesn't show.
I guess, can you point it on this, is it like right around here?
Yeah, that's right.
Right around here is the church?
A little south of that grade change there, I
Oh,
believe.
south of this grade change? Oh,
Believe.
okay. Yeah, there's a lot of steep hills there, but, okay.
Actually, I
So
have.
it would be good to see the visual, okay, you kind of do have it.
I'm getting there. There you go.
Oh, yeah. So it is, yeah, I guess you have parking lots here, but,
Yeah, and
I think your buildings would be higher than that church beside it. It would just be good to have a visual of that from the street view. And, oh, yeah, I don't know if I had something else. It escapes me. I think that's it for now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else? Sir, if you step up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Steve White. I'm the property manager for Liberty Church. The pastor has asked me to come. He's away on a missions trip in Kenya, so he asked me to come, and we have some concerns. The thing is, right here, it looks like your parking is coming right up against our parking. And I know on the dimensional and intensity regulations, it's got required 25 feet setback from the side, and it looks like you have proposed 85 feet. There's trees there now which would block whether it was a 3-story or 5-story building. It doesn't matter for us, but there's no trees. It looks like you have all the trees coming out of there, which it create a visual huge problem for us to take those trees down and put your parking right up against the line. That's what it looks like. So I'm confused on your setback regulations here.
The setback to the building itself?
Well, I don't know, maybe I'm not.
Well, so the
experienced
parking lot to the church is right, it's right up to the property line, right? So the trees are on our side of the fence essentially.
Yes.
So with our development, we'd be looking to do essentially what the church did is cut down to near the property line, probably leave some big growth trees along the property line, and then do some plantings and for our benefit, for rentability of the units, we'd be looking at a fence as well, most
Sure.
likely.
Now, what's the setback mean when it's required 25 feet and then you have proposed 85 setback? What does that mean?
As far as the building? So the
I don't know,
require-
what the
so require-
regulations.
yeah,
Gentlemen,
so
if we could,
Through the chair.
questions through the chair, please.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Ask
I
me.
don't know
We'll get
what,
him
on
to-
the thing, what proposes a 25-foot side yard setback requirement compared to they have proposed an 85-foot setback requirement. What has to be set back 25 or 80 feet, 85 feet?
So that's a question for planning.
So the setback is to the structure. The setback of the parking lot does not apply in that case. It's the setback of the building to the property line.
And so that's why the church was also able to build their parking up to the line?
Correct.
Right.
So it'd be the building, from our property line to the building is 85 feet, is what you're saying?
Yep.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah, we would not be in favor, because there'd be clear cutting all the trees, there'd be no visual thing, and from the road to this lower parking lot here, my guess is 20 feet, to this is probably, my guess is, you probably know better, a 50-foot grade difference up here. Now you're gonna see a 63-foot building on top of that, which could be like 110 feet from the street. That's a
Okay.
huge difference from, so that's all. We're concerned about the tree, no matter what it would be. I don't know if we can put in, there's some kind of buffer that they have to leave some visual for the trees, for the approval, because that would just be disastrous, having that all clear cut. Those trees now are probably, 50 feet high. It leaves some of that stuff. That's what the pastor would be asking, that there'd be some requirement to leave that.
Okay. Okay, anything else?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard? Step right up. Your name and address for the record, please.
Steve Genetti, 19 Rockwell Drive. I just want to encourage the board to approve the variance that Mr. Corbett's seeking. I think he gave a good presentation. They gave a presentation last week to the community and did a pretty clear, a little bit more thorough than what they've presented here. But as an abutter up at the top of the hill, it's just that with Route 20 being down at the bottom, a 50-foot building is going to be somewhat concealed, a lot better than a 30-foot or 35-foot building at the top of the hill. It's just the topography there lends itself to a tall building lower down. It also increases the amount of green space, excuse me, that's going to be left. There is wetlands down below that they're handling pretty carefully, but up top it's not shown. There's a couple of vernal pools up there that we'd like to keep. It's just, I really encourage the board to, maintain the green space up there. It also acts, the trees, not only for some place for the remaining wildlife to live, but it acts as a good sound buffer from the Route 20 noise, especially now that we're going to have the UPS guys adding to the mix. There are a couple of things that would play into it. Should they build up on top of the hill, there's a lot of ledge up there, which means blasting. Not in favor of that. I do wish to see a couple of restrictions. One is that there'd be no future or ability to put any connection from the apartment buildings up to the roads and back, Ashton, Farmington, Rockwell. Just to add traffic to those residential areas would be really undesirable. The other thing is, I think it's bound by the zoning anyway, is that the cap on 250 units, that once this is done, that they couldn't come back in the future and try to develop the top part of the hill. So to be capped at that. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Sandra Fritz, 21 Pheasant Hill Drive, and I do want to thank the Planning Board and Go Venture Capital Group LLC for the community hearing. That was helpful last week for us to have a better understanding of what this project is. My concern is that piece that we're talking about that will not be developed. And having lived over there and having a lot of development, we have somebody come in, they tell us X, 5 years down the road, it is private property, they may sell it, Y comes. So I think if we're approving a variance, I would love to see that it's contingent upon a restriction that that piece of land that they're saying they will not build is part of the variance, and that it's in perpetuity, so nothing can ever be built up there. As someone who lives on the Stony Hill side in Hills Farm, we're talking about, I prefer the 5-story, less buildings, leave that space alone, leave some open space, but I'm also concerned about that height, because it's not only Rockwell, it's also looking across 20 into anybody who's living on that Stony Hill, Pheasant Hill area. I'm not sure what that height will look like. The church, we can see the steeple, really, that's about it. And if this is above that, will they be looking down into our development? We already have Elmwood on the corner. So I think anything we can do to make sure it's appealable for everyone, it has to be profitable for them, we understand that, but making sure that it fits into the neighborhood as we move forward. But for me, the biggest piece is making sure that if the variance is approved, that it's contingent upon having that no further building capped at a certain amount in perpetuity. So 5 years from now, we can't say, oh, we've bought this and now we're going, new developer, we're gonna build another development up on that hill. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Kevin O'Brien, 39 Farmington Drive. I live up there by the back end of the development where there is that piece of property, that zone rural B, that Tom, you said, you're not really interested in that, which is great. In terms of maintaining the wetlands part as non-buildable is maybe a condition, and I know, Chris, I mentioned that, and you said, not sure which part of the process is the best for it, but maybe like that, they can't just continue that road and then all of a sudden have another buildable land. That's not zoned as part of the Route 20 overlay district, but still, it's just something that us in that neighborhood, in Winchester Estates are a little bit concerned about. So that would be great if we could implement that to say, hey, this is where the development is, it stops, and only the part that's part of the Route 20 overlay as well. And then from what you were saying, and I agree with, I mentioned yesterday, last week at the planning meeting you had, which was very nice of you to do, went through it. I mentioned maybe a balloon test to see how high that building would be, those buildings would be. And you said, oh, I thought of that. Maybe it might be a nice thing to try, just to see if we can see, all right, put a couple balloons on each side of each of the buildings and say, all right, well, how high is that? What do we see? Just a thought, and maybe something that you might want to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm John Vetter, 15 Pheasant Hill Drive. I'd like to thank the petitioner for having the community forum last week, and I'd like to encourage them to continue those types of meetings as the plans for this development continue. I'm going to reiterate again that one of the purposes of the 5-story plan is to keep that upper portion as green space. I'd like to reiterate that it'd be great if the variance stipulated that space must remain as green space in perpetuity. Specifically, it can't be cleared, it can't be built on, and can't be sold to a neighboring property so that they can build upon it. We've already seen about 110 acres cleared south of us on Centec Boulevard for the UPS. we'd like to keep as much green space north of us as we could on this parcel, and we'd like to encourage the board to place that stipulation in their variance that that space needs to be remaining green space, because that's the sole purpose of having the 5-story variance, is to not build up another proportion. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Step forward. Can you make, is it a additional comment?
It's an additional comment.
If you could make it brief, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Steve Danielson, 75 Stony Hill. One of the main things about this proposal, and it's not necessarily under your review, is for the ZBA, but it's about the traffic light and making sure that there is one. I don't know if there's it's only been a week, but if there's any update on getting a traffic light. I know that because this proposal in some ways is contingent in my mind, and I think in yours also, is to get a traffic light on 20.
So I think that falls under planning, not within our purview. Is that correct?
That's correct. So, and to drive that a little bit further, so from the community meeting, we kind of discussed MassDOT and some of the volumes that preliminary studies are showing that it is not meeting the threshold for a signalized intersection. And we did have some of that conversation around what that would look. Ultimately, we'll have to work with the applicant and Mass DOT and the planning board through their process to develop that proposal of what that will eventually look like, and whether it's a signalized intersection or some other traffic mitigating measure. But to the applicant's benefit, they've committed to reviewing that and supporting the town in pursuing a traffic mitigating measure.
So that's, appreciate going on the record as stating that. It
Yeah.
sounds to me like this is going to work its way through planning and then DOT as well, so
Yeah.
understood.
I just wanted to bring it up because the whole project really contingent on that traffic light. Otherwise, it's too dangerous to
Yep.
put in or get in and out of that neighborhood for Stony Hill or for this place.
Yep, understood. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard? Okay. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Move to close the public hearing?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right, so let's discuss this. I just have a question. When referring to the concern over future development, I believe they're referring to the abutting parcel that is known as 29R Rockwell Drive. Is that true?
No, I believe, so it's
Okay.
the green space that essentially the developer is at right to develop under regular zoning, but without this variance, they are committing to not developing. The residents are asking for a further memorialization of that commitment.
I get it. Okay. All right. All right. Any other questions, comments before we?
I'm wondering if enough of us think that we should perhaps continue this so we could get some more visuals, some drawings, something, a balloon test, whatever, to give us a better sense.
What did you?
So to do that, I would just ask that we vote to reopen the public hearing and collect the
I can
the
withdraw
site section.
with that request, I mean, if we're comfortable enough.
We haven't proposed, we don't have proposed conditions at the moment either, so we could workshop those with, the applicant and the planning department to propose for next meeting if you wish to continue to better,
Right.
formulate that.
So I do apologize. I should not have closed the public hearing because to me, I appreciate the process you've been through, but I still have concern myself about how we're going to decipher what this building is going to look like. That is my concern. I don't know if anyone else shares that concern. Megan does, obviously. Which would require us to
Vote to reopen, which is.
make a motion to reopen the public hearing, and then we would make a motion to continue, and we'd have you back with a proposal on how we might be able to see it a little better.
Yeah, I think there's sufficient interest, obviously, in the community to seeing site sections and maybe a balloon test too. So I support that.
All right, can I get a motion to open the public hearing, please?
I move to open the public hearing.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And then can I get a motion for continuation to a specific date,
Yeah,
which
what's-
would be?
what's the next one?
July 28th.
July 28th. I move to continue hearing on the variance under section 7N3B11B to exceed the maximum height of building, a maximum building height of 45 feet or 3 stories and allow 63 feet at 525 Boston Turnpike to the July, 28th hearing at 6 p.m.
Second?
And I think it's Hartford Turnpike.
Hartford Turnpike, sorry.
Did you say
I
Boston?
said Boston.
Okay, well,
Hartford
I
Turnpike,
understand.
Limited Industrial District.
I will second that motion.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
All right. Last and final. All right. Next up, this is to hear the appeal of the Quinn LLC, care of Saxon Partners, 25 Recreation Park Drive, Suite 204 in Hingham, for a comprehensive permit pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 40B, Section 20-223 of the Massachusetts General Law to permit the construction of a 300-unit multifamily residential development upon property located at 104 Main Street, 328 North Quinsigamon Ave, 66 through 76 Main Street, 94 Main Street in Shrewsbury. The subject premise are described on the Shrewsbury's Assessor's Tax Plate 19 and Plot 073000, Plate 19 and Plot 068000, Plate 19 and Plot 069000, and Plate 19 and Plot 072000. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Mark Donahue from Fletcher Tilton on behalf of the applicant. We've got a brief presentation and also copies for the benefit of the board if they can be distributed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
While Mr. Leffels connecting, let me introduce the rest of the team if I could. With me this evening to make a presentation as to the overall development is David Calhoun of Saxon Partners, Clay Smook of Smook Architecture, Jack Leffel at the end, who is quickly typing, from Saxon Partners also, and Phil Cadero from Allen and Major. Our proposal this evening is to do a very high-level review of the project. That is not meant to try to rush through anything, so certainly if there are questions or if we aren't clear on something, feel free to stop us through that. But it's really just to set the table for what we would propose, and we've worked with Mr. McGoldrick and Ms. O'Neill to then work on specifics as to topics to deal with in future meetings, after peer review's been conducted and available to you for review, so we can get into the real details at that time of the project. So by way of background, what is proposed, as the legal ad indicated, is a 300-unit multifamily rental residential development on an approximately 5.83 acre tract of land that is bounded by North Quinsigamon Ave, Main Street, and the layout of Interstate Route 290, presently used as an industrial storage facility. There are a total of 300 residential units proposed. The breakdown is important. It's in your package, but to review it, it is 19 studio units, 173 one-bedroom units, 78 two-bedroom units, and 30 three-bedroom units, which is a requirement actually of the state under Chapter 40B requirements for the total. The building itself consists of a little over 350,000 gross square feet of space, and also includes, the facility includes structured parking for a facility that will accommodate 332 parking spaces within that facility. It is a development of magnitude, not just in size and scope, but also in cost. The anticipated cost, it exceeds $100 million. Great, no worries. and therefore it will be a significant contributor to the tax revenue for the town of Shrewsbury. The present site is assessed at a little over $305,000. So in an effort to try to just give an overall view, I'm going to have Mr. Calhoun introduce Saxon Partners, some of their expertise in this particular area, and then Mr. Smook will review some of the architecture, review the building and how it's modified over a period of time. Mr. Cadero will give you just a high-level view of the matters. In a future meeting, you'll hear from Jeffrey Dirk of Vanessa Associates, who is our traffic consultant and is still in process of doing it. And then we want to hear from you and the public as to particular areas that you want us to focus on in future meetings. So with that and with your permission, Mr. Calhoun.
Good evening, thanks for having us. My name is David Calhoun, and just a quick full disclosure, I actually grew up in Worcester. As most people in Worcester, I'm related to many people. I was fortunate enough to go to St. John's. I went to St. John's, I went back. I finished out my education at Worcester Polytech, and then I worked here in Shrewsbury for almost 13 years before moving to the South Shore with my wife. Saxon Partners was founded 26 years ago, almost today, and it was founded by Don Smith and Gary Dahlman, two very, very experienced developers. We're a small shop. There's 11 people of us plus a dog, and we do really great projects. And if you look on page 5 of the piece we gave you, you'll see we're pretty spread out. We go from Maine to Florida, out to Colorado. We do have some holdings in California, but we don't do any development there. We do here in New England have the great track record of having developed one of the largest, most successful mixed-use master plan developments, which is Colony Place down off at the intersection of 44 and Route 3. If you ever get off to see it, you'll know it because there's a very, very expensive bridge, which is the entry to it. That has gone from retail to growing the back, where we developed 300 units with the Hanover Company of 40B project. A second project back there is being done by Claremont, and a third residential piece is being done by, name escapes me right now, but we're also have the track record for doing one of the largest age-restricted adult communities in New England. That was Oak Point down in Middleborough, and it's been tremendously successful. We do not own it now, but it was sold off several years back. But currently, Saxon recently has developed somewhere between $500 and $1 billion worth of new developments, and we hold over $1 billion in assets. We are, if you want to just take a quick look, part of our focus right now is a product that we call the Merrick, which is focused on building best-in-class housing as close as we can to major medical centers across the country. Our first one is up by Dartmouth Hitchcock Hospital, and you can see some of the images of the amenity spaces. We hope to do an amenity package even better than this, and that's still in the final planning. With that said, I'd like to give it to Phil to kind of build the site from the ground level up. He's going to be very, very brief, and he's happy to come back and spend hours if you want. But Phil.
Thank you. He has to remind me to be brief. Phil Cordero from Allen and Major Associates. My office has an address at 10 Street in Lakeville. The slides that are on the screen and in the handout, very quickly, just to reiterate what the attorney mentioned at the outset. You know, we are adjacent to Route 290, North Quinsigamond and Main Street. That defines our parcel. It is, as he mentioned, currently being utilized by industrial. There are trucks, there's gravel, there's storage on site, a variety of vehicles and, you know, ancillary uses there. 5.83 acres, about 60% of it is already cleared, it's gravelled, and it's just allowed for general storage of the land. When you look at the master site plan, which again, as David mentioned, happy to get into all the details as this board sees fit, either tonight or at future meetings, but our role has been to take the building, which will consist of the 300 units, and find a mechanism to situate it on site that provides for adequacy of parking, adequacy of circulation for those future residents of the town and the project of the Wheelock, and also adequacy for fire safety for the Shrewsbury Fire Department, given the size and the density of the project. So we have worked with the fire department several times on refining this plan, and we can talk about the various refinements. But ultimately what it has come down to is the plan that's in front of you and on the screens. We have dual entrances on North Quinsigamond. Those are to allow the fire apparatus vehicles to enter and exit the site. It was very important to us. They do require that we have dual entrances. So that's answering a question of why we have two instead of one. We are also limited. We don't have access on Main Street per Mass DOT standards, so we've had to focus our efforts for connectivity to North Quinsigamond, and clearly no access to Route 290. Full circulation around the building meets all the fire code standards. The full circulation also allows us to do a couple of innovative things on the project, which we can talk about in more detail. The first is that we have a porous access road for the fire department. So while we do have paved surfaces, we have tried to reduce the intensity of development by making those porous. We'll talk about the number of parking spaces throughout the course of the hearings. 471 in total, predominantly in the parking garage, the rest surface-based. We have accommodations to introduce reserve parking or banked parking. That is that we can show adequacy of parking, but only build it if there's a necessity to do it based on the tenancy and the traffic patterns of the group. We meet all of the standard dimensions that the town would ask upon us for development within this zone in terms of lot coverages, building coverages, drive aisles, parking space dimensions. We'll get into those. We'll ask your peer review engineer to opine upon those, and we'll give you additional detail. We will present to you, obviously, a fully engineered site plan in terms of a way to mitigate the grades that are out there now, mitigate the runoff conditions from Route 290, mitigate the runoff conditions that are flowing through our site that go into the municipal system in North Quinsigamond. The town engineer has started to provide and formulate his initial comments. We will work with them and review those and provide that information to you. We meet the Massachusetts Stormwater Management Standards. We meet the town of Shrewsbury Stormwater Design Standards. That'll all be sussed out as we go through the process. In short, we'll introduce a stormwater management system that is in keeping with all of those standards to retain stormwater, recharge it to the aquifer. One of the feedback comments we heard from our neighborhood meeting was, we are on an aquifer, we are near the lake, water quality, water treatment, water recharge don't change the natural water courses. Those are all elements that are in this application, and we can talk about those again in greater detail. We've also had to work very hard to deal with runoff condition from the state. We'll have that. Utility-wise, it's an electric-based project. We will seek connection. We will work with Selco on determining the adequacy of services. We have sewer connection in North Quinsigamond as the only road that we have access to because of the DOT limitations on Main Street. So we will continue to work with the engineering and water and sewer department on the taps, et cetera. We also recognize the town is a stretch code community, so part of our development plan will include spaces for electric vehicle charging, as is required under the code. So I wanted to keep it very high level. Again, happy to delve into all of the details tonight or in workshops and meetings as the board sets forth tonight. Thank you.
All right. Clay Smook of Smook Architecture.
Yes, hi. My name is Clay Smook, Smook Architecture, longtime resident of Shrewsbury, now 20 years. I guess that's a long time. 56 Camelot Drive, if I need to identify myself. Been up in Massachusetts for about 150 years. I've been registered as an architect here since 1989. Started my own firm, Smook Architecture, 21 years ago. It was in downtown Boston. I made a decision about 10, 11 years ago to move it out to Westboro. Decided that I wanted to bring Class A architecture and urban design services out beyond 495. Also, cut my commute down quite a bit every day. My firm does a wide variety of work from master planning and feasibility studies of projects similar to this, as well as architecture projects of all different sizes. We completed one along East Main Street in Westboro, a small office building. I was actually the chairman of the library building committee of the project that was built. I guess it's close to 10 years ago. That was an appointment that I had, and I was on that project for several years. To me, this is just a terrific site for a project like this. From an urban design standpoint, it's fairly an island site surrounded by major thoroughfares adjacent to 290. It's sort of a perfect sort of location for a multifamily housing. What you've got up here is a quick rendering of it, and I'll touch base on this just a little bit. Obviously, buildings of this scale, there are a few opportunities to look within the town of Shrewsbury of buildings of this scale. A building like the library, although not residential, it's got a very strong base, middle top. It really sort of respects sort of a traditional architectural language, but it does have a little bit of a modern twist to it. We see that sort of a thing here. Of course, residential projects such as Lakeway Commons, which has been constructed, that's also a high-quality building. I will say that this building, which, well, Steph, take a step back for a second. I've been working on this project, I think, for 9 months or a year with Saxon. I've worked on over a year. I've worked on several successful projects that we permitted in other municipalities here in Massachusetts of this type of multifamily housing. Start with master planning, really looking at how we can make a project like this fit on a site like this. And in general, it's always 300 units. It can be anywhere between 1 and 5 buildings. We investigated all that. I'd say that, and I know that Dave has got a whole binder full of master plans and invoices to go with it, that has all these different configurations, looking at how we can best take advantage of the site. From an architectural and master planning standpoint, what do I want to do? I want to create buildings that have a lot of light and air and have great views and solar orientation. And using this multi-fingered pier scheme, as you can see, it has sort of 4 fingers, we're able to maximize the amount of units that are getting views, long views of the lake. The next slide, please. So this is a diagrammatic plan. Again, a bigger sort of stepping back. I will say that when we came to this configuration, I'm going to say 6 months or so, the building was actually much bigger. It was closer to 400,000 square feet, 391,000 square feet, with even a larger parking garage here. We heard some of the feedback from the town, and what that was is take your units. First of all, we were using a standard unit, which is on a 12.5-foot module, which means a 1-bedroom is 25 feet, a 2-bedroom is 37.5 feet, a 3-bedroom is 50 feet. We want you to really try to make these units smaller so that they become more affordable. Okay? The second thing is we had no studios. Typically, we don't show studios. So what we did is we went back, we rejiggered the mix, we put studios into the mix. They're about 500 or 600 square feet. We have 19 studios. We greatly reduced the amount of 2-bedrooms from 100 to 78. The 1-bedrooms stayed about the same at 173, and of course we have the three bedrooms that are mandated by 10%. But what we did is we brought the square footage of the building down close to 10%, which is not insignificant. The second thing is the parking garage. We had originally looked at a much longer parking garage. It was actually something like 272 lineal feet long. You know, it's all based on the length of the parking ramp, because you have to be able to park on that ramp. And with conversations with the fire department, they felt there was a dead-end condition happening here. They were going to have a lot of problems with the trucks. We decided to do what's called a helix garage. You sort of go up a half level. It's sort of like origami to figure it out. But we were able to reduce the length of the garage by only by about 50 feet and only go up 1 story more. And what does that mean? What that means is the garage as planned is 5 levels, but it's 4 stories tall. So it goes up 44 feet, and of course there's a parapet / guardrail that runs around the top of it. What's great about this also, and one of the reasons that talking about the ramping is, we like direct access from the parking directly into the building, so I don't have to get into an elevator and get on a half stop. So each one of those parking levels allows the occupant to directly access. Anyway, back to this, we've created a series of courtyards. There's the drop-off courtyard, there's the pool amenities courtyard, then there's another courtyard as well, the third finger. Project like this, very high quality, has a very robust amenities package, a clubhouse somewhere in the neighborhood of between 8,000 and 10,000 square feet, which has all sorts of different game rooms and amenities and whatnot to it. Next slide. Again, these things all start to look the same, but you get a sense of what we call the chiclets of all these different pieces and all those colors. And we try to equally distribute those uses, those studios, 1s, 2s, and 3s throughout the project. Okay, this is just a quick diagram of the plans. Again, this is what we call now the reduced size. The studio is about 18 feet wide. The 1 bedroom is still 25, but the 2 bedrooms, we took 3 feet out of the 2 bedrooms. We took 5 feet out of the 3 bedrooms. These are still robust units, though. So as I was talking about the building, as most of these buildings, these are wood frame buildings that are using pre-engineered lumber, regular lumber as well as some steel. It's clad in a cementitious material that allows for low building maintenance, and it really holds color very, very well. Again, we have a strong base, middle, top. The floor to floors, the way these buildings work, by the time you put all the HVAC through it, is the floor to floors tend to be about 11 feet, sometimes 11.4, which gets you to the top of the roof of this building at 60. There are a couple of penetrations that go above that, elevator override and mechanical screen. And here are some ground views. Again, there's a tremendous amount of open space available around this building, and it all, really, the experience for the tenant is obviously in their unit and what happens really between the curb and the building. So having a robust landscape program is very, very important to Saxon Partners because they need to rent these units. And I think that might wrap up that portion of it. So again, I wanted to be really, 1,000-foot overview of this. Happy to talk about it as much as you would like. Back to you.
Couple things, just if you keep paging along, eventually it'll come to a couple of site pictures. One of the items that we're working on right now, and actually your town engineer asked us to also look at the condition of the existing sidewalks around it. What can we do with those sidewalks? So Phil's team is doing 2 things. They're doing a photographic record of the perimeter of what I call the island. Most of that property, at least on Main Street side, is all owned by Mass DOT. And we've reached out to Joe Farley at Mass DOT because we'd like to meet with him to see if we can't take over the maintenance of everything that's along Main Street, because it just doesn't look great. It'd be our best interest to be able to maintain it, irrigate it, make it look great, right down to the intersection of Main and North Quinsigamon. And at North Quinsigamon, we're going to hopefully be able to work with the town to create a landscape feature at that intersection and a sign that's keeping with, whether it's welcome to Shrewsbury or it's our project, but give that a better look. The other thing that we're also working on is Gouch Park across the way. We reached out to Keith, and Keith put us in touch with the DPW director, and I believe it's the head of Parks and Recreation. And we're doing an existing conditions plan and a photo plan by Phil's team. They hope to wrap that up sometime later this week. That will then go to Clay, and then Clay is going to see what we can put together for a plan to improve the park. Then we'll have to come back here, obviously, and to the town manager's office to see what we can work out for us to be able to work with the town on us redeveloping the park. So it's a greater asset, not only for people to come and enjoy, but also our tenants, and figure out the best way that that will be maintained with no additional cost to the town. So those are some of the things we're working on. We did have at Chris's request, a neighborhood meeting. 371 invites went out. I think 9 people showed up. It was a good evening. There were 3 people from the town there as well, and it was very productive. It was the biggest thing that they were more concerned about was traffic, existing traffic problems that they have and frustrations unrelated to us, but that's what they were talking about, and that's what something that Jeff Dirk will speak to, and we'll be filing his report, I hope, by a week from this Thursday. And then you can send it off to your peer review folks. Other than that, we are working on improving our amenities package, and we may be presenting that sooner than later, because our founder came up with the idea of trying to create, rather than having all our amenities space on the first floor, creating a sky lounge up on the top floor for our tenants, so that there's a great space that people can have the long view of the lake. So that's where we are, and we kept it short, so you can approve us tonight and send us on our way.
Good try. Very nice. Great presentation. Thank you.
So we're mostly interested in what particular areas of concern you have at first blush, so we can make sure we touch on them in future meetings, and then come up with an organized schedule for topics, which we've worked with Mr. McGoldrick and Ms. O'Neill, and other types of projects. I know you've done the same thing, keeps things focused and seems to move along in the process, so.
I mean, traffic's the first thing that pops into everyone's mind, I think. Am I speaking for the whole group here? Yeah. I mean, the island approach, you know, that makes a lot of sense. But there's a lot going on at that intersection, so I'm curious to see how that will play out. Those are my initial thoughts. Pete, anything?
Yeah, I mean, traffic, environmental impact, visual impact. Those are the main things for me. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
I'll add screening from the road. Be nice to see some good vegetation on both the Quincy side and the Main Street side.
I mean, it's all important, but I know or I'm fairly certain the public is gonna be concerned, like you said, with traffic. And as you already said, stormwater, so.
Yeah.
Shane?
All of the above, and I'm interested to see more about that corner of Main Street in Quinsigamon, where you said you have plans for a landscape feature or connectivity maybe to the park across the street, the improvements over there. I'd be curious to see exactly what you'd be doing over there as well, but in addition to everything else that's been mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
That's just 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
I heard electrical-based project. Does that mean are we talking about heat pumps and that sort of thing, or as opposed to gas heat and water heating and all that?
It's gonna be 100% electric heat.
100% electric? Great. Are there any plans for solar or geothermal or anything like that?
We typically make the roofs ready, so
Yeah.
that they can structurally handle solar if it becomes something that works to our advantage.
Okay.
And that's as far as we go with that.
Okay. And you mentioned that you didn't meet the standards for MassDOT for Main Street. What's the, in terms of access, and that's why you're talking about North Quincy, what's the hang up there? I'm curious.
With the Main Street access?
Yeah.
It's prohibited.
Just prohibited straight up, okay.
That's right. It's designated as no access because it's part of the state highway layout to 290 and the off-ramp.
I see.
That makes
So
sense.
they designate that we
You
can't
can't have an
curb
entry.
cut
Yep.
Right.
onto Main Street from the side of the project.
Okay.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's all.
I'm just curious about the 40B aspect of it. Where does that take us in terms of numbers in town?
So, the numbers, I'd have to look at those, but I do have a couple slides prepared if I can kind of jump
Absolutely.
into those. It's only 4. And just for the benefit of residents at home, is primarily what this is. I know the board is familiar with 40B. But I just want to give a brief overview of the municipal actions to date just a general overview of comprehensive permits, and then timelines and expectations for moving forward through this process. Saxon Partners and their team reached out around January of 2024 with preliminary concept and reviews. As mentioned in their presentation, we reviewed and provided preliminary comments and feedback to them from those preliminary plans. Had a number of meetings with the applicant in that time. December 2024 mass housing application was provided to the town. A number of departments, as well as our own, did provide comment letters as part of that project eligibility letter application. And those formal comments, that was our first crack at formal comments that were provided to that entity as part of that preliminary process. And then, as mentioned, we had the June 3rd community forum where residents came out to express their concerns with the project. We discussed the process there as well. Mid-July, we're anticipating to have another comment letter specific to this application and the changes that we've seen from the previous iterations, and we will be issuing that. We'll also consolidate other departmental comments as they do their review of the project before them. Just kind of briefly going over the general comprehensive permit, I think it's important to see kind of how that process lays out for the public. So traditionally, a project like this would go through a number of boards. The Zoning Board of Appeals, Planning Board, require stormwater permits and other local approvals. Under this process, that is shrank and made more comprehensive through the 40B process. So the Zoning Board of Appeals holds the responsibility for all local permits. That isn't to say so the state permits still follow their regular timelines and their regular process. As of the opening of this public hearing, the board will have 180 days maximum in order to hold the public hearing, at which point they will have to close the public hearing and render a decision. That ZBA decision, the comprehensive permit decision, as well as the state permits, feed into a final building permit if this project is approved at all of those steps. So again, just kind of laying out the piece of the permitting puzzle for the public. It's important to, I think, just touch on the available options for the board. So there's the option to approve, an option to approve with conditions, or to deny. Caveat on the denial is that it's only allowable under limited circumstances, failing reasonable conditions for health, safety, open space, and site building design concerns. It's also important to note that those appeals under the 40B process go to the Housing Appeals Court, not the traditional land court. The Housing Appeals Court will only uphold a local decision for denial if the town meets certain statutory minima, aka the safe harbor provisions. The town does not currently meet those minima. Finally, just touching on timeline and expectations. As mentioned, there will be a number of studies that either have been submitted to peer review or in final phases of development. We've outlined a schedule here of anticipated dates to have discussion on each of those topical areas. We see that this helps, not only the board and applicants kind of piece out specific areas of discussion, but also helps the public to focus comments and prepare for comments related to those topic areas rather than the full project, taking in those bite-sized pieces. So we're not here for extended periods every evening. So again, June 30th, this evening is the public hearing, which is now open. That 180-day deadline is December 27th. The board does have the option to close the public hearing prior to that. They do not have an option to go beyond that 180-day deadline unless by mutual agreement with the applicant and the board. And then after that close of the public hearing, the ZBA will have 40 days thereafter to render their decision. So that lays out the timeline and expectations for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Okay.
Just to add to Mr. McGoldrick's, and I'm sure the board is already aware, but we would expect that between the time of our opportunity to meet, that we'll be meeting with town staff to review details so that when materials are presented to you, they've been vetted ahead of time, and hopefully we've, consolidated any remaining issues or at least moved toward resolution. So there'll be a lot of duck feet working underneath the water between those monthly meetings.
Thank you. Can you solve the traffic problems in the next month?
I think that August is a good idea to talk about traffic.
Okay. Here we go.
Just one quick point. Conservation-wise, we did file for requests for determination of applicability with the Conservation Commission before we did anything, and they came up with a negative finding.
Great. Okay. All right.
Public comment?
Oh, yes, sorry. So it is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard on this matter? Sir, if you'd step forward.
I'm Brian McGrail from Oakland Avenue. I just had a
Number
couple.
Oakland?
36 Oakland Ave.
Thank you.
Yep, I just had a couple of concerns about this project. There's no off-road area for buses to pull off on North Quincy. That traffic's gonna back right up in the morning. It already backs up, and they have to stop and load buses onto, load the kids onto the buses every morning. North Quinsigamond's gonna be backed up all the way to Route 9 in the morning. Just a thought, traffic there. The east and west, I know 290, that's the state. The off-ramp coming from 290, coming onto Main Street, those people coming into this development are gonna need to take a left-hand turn. That's a death spot right there. People who got killed, as well as coming down that big ramp coming westbound onto Main Street. People got killed on that sweeping curve right there because the yield sign's in a lousy spot. It was badly engineered, and an old man got killed right on that property a number of years ago. So that's something to be concerned about. The state should step up and fix those areas. The traffic that's coming into the area, just so you know, and we all know, is Selco's being built there, Phoenix Trucking, Clinton Street Trucking, Holden Street Trucking, FedEx, Worcester Sand and Stone, Shrewsbury High School expansion, and St. John's High School, and then Valmet, which is already there. It's just getting overloaded. It's gonna be bottleneck. So anything you can do on the traffic would be really helpful. Gouch Pond, I live on Lake Quinsigamond, it's dying. Gouch Pond, it's not Gouch Pond, it's Lake Quinsigamond, Gouch Park. The water chestnut has made its way into that area of the lake this year, first time. And if you go across Main Street toward Worcester Sand, you can't even put a canoe through it anymore. That's how bad it is. They just had a chestnut pool. I did it a couple of years ago. It was a waste of time, total waste of time. That area, the lake is dying from nutrients running into it. We're killing our lake. Everybody builds a little impervious surface, sends the water to the neighbors, into the lakes, including my house. I do the best I can. I tied into town sewer. I had a cesspool that I lied about for years that wasn't leaking, but it was leaking. And the town put a system in. We pump out to it now, so we all try to do what's right. The lake's gonna die if it's not taken care of. So I think the development's nice, and I think you guys did a great presentation.
Thanks.
Thank you. If you get anything from that, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good points. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Okay.
All right.
I don't need to close.
No.
I can't close.
We
So,
continue, right?
we continue, sorry.
You can.
Before tonight, might I remind myself?
Can always undo it.
Trying my best, guys. All right, so,
So I move to continue hearing on a comprehensive permit under Chapter 40B, Sections 20 and 23, to permit the construction of a 300-unit multifamily residential development at 104 Main Street, Limited Commercial Business District, to July 28th at 6 p.m.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot. See you on the 28th.
Thank you.
Good job.
You available, sir?
So no new business.
Oh.
So
All right, so moving right along.
Oh, we're not.
No new business, so I can just.
Do we have new business? Okay,
All right, I move to adjourn.
okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
I get a little bit like, I'm imagining.
We had a lot tonight.
We did have a lot. We did.